barrage of storms that have battered the southwest in recent months have caused a trail of coastal destruction unlike anything the region has seen in living memory. They caused millions of pounds worth of damage to our roads and railways, to our homes and businesses, and to our coastal defences. In this programme, we assess the worst hit areas and we meet the people still reeling as they try to rebuild their homes, their lives and their livelihoods.
Complete loss of devastation. Just looked like a war zone, to be honest.
The waves were starting to hit the rocks and then hit the side of my train. Bam, bam. It's terrifying.
Then you could see the white water through the railway lines. And then each wave was taking away the tarmac, so it's, yes, we've really got to go.
We meet the experts who say that storms like these are something we might have to get used to.
All the indications are that if you look back, this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. But if you look forward, they're going to become more frequent.
And we ask the big question. For those living on the edge, is it time to rebuild or retreat? Amid all the drama of the winter storms, one sight above all beggared belief. The Southwest's main rail line destroyed. On February the 4th, mountainous seas, driven by an unusual southeasterly wind, ripped it apart, leaving the line and a question hanging. Could it ever be rebuilt? 2 months and £35 million worth of repairs later, you'd be hard-pressed to know that anything much had happened here. But happen it certainly did, and the ferocious weather that smashed through the sea wall and the track that runs on top of it has left its mark on people's lives too. Right in the path of the storm was Daryl Fensom's morning train.
Caught the train at 8:30, regular commute apart from the fact it was a bit windy. Then, as we were approaching the train station here, maybe 200 to 300 metres behind, noticed that the waves were starting to hit the rocks, go over the rocks and then hit the side of my train. Bam, bam. It's terrifying.
Daryl found himself trapped in what felt like a giant car wash on the section of line that 12 hours later collapsed. And were you scared?
Yes, definitely scared, yeah. In my mind, I'm running through what would happen if the train started to give way, if the train had fallen on its side, what would I do?
You're working out a plan?
Yeah,
Your
definitely.
own evacuation plan?
Yeah.
What was it?
Pick up stuff, run towards the door and hold on to the pole near the door itself.
Luckily, it didn't come to that. The train reversed away from Dawlish and to the safety of a station further up the line. But for the residents that live trackside, there was no easy escape.
As soon as the wall went, the stones were getting chucked up for the ballast from the railway line. And obviously that's never happened before.
Shane Manning was at home with his family as the storm gathered force.
Then you could see the white water through the railway line, and then each wave was taking away the tarmac, gripping it each time, and that was inching towards the house. So it's, yes, we've really got to go.
Shane got out in the nick of time. Shortly after, his drive and part of his garage were washed away. Wow.
You can see the cavity there.
Yeah. So is there a load of your stuff down in that pit?
Yeah. Buried now.
So is this pretty much as you left it, Shane?
Yes.
So it was. Shane still doesn't know whether his house can be repaired or whether it needs to be completely rebuilt. Do you want to still live here?
Oh yeah, oh it's gorgeous. The last few days have been, the sun's been out and I've really thought, oh, I'm going to miss it in the summer. It is lovely down here.
But will you feel safe here? I mean, this...
Oh yeah, oh totally.
It could happen again.
Well, the weather could happen again, but the amount of concrete and blocks that they put in front, this house isn't going anywhere.
Amazingly, no one was harmed in Dawlish that night. Darryl Fensom couldn't believe his lucky escape.
A day later, I'd found out that the piece of land that my train had actually stopped on didn't exist anymore. And that really puts it into perspective. I mean, if that had happened the day before, goodness knows what could have happened to me.
The line reopened just in time for Easter.
We've had the Orange Army, let's hear it for them.
But despite the success of the repair job here, there remain big questions about the long-term future of this line. And big questions too for all who live and work on the coast. At the Met Office in Exeter, they've been analysing why the storms did so much damage. So Helen, just describe what we're seeing here. This was the 4th, wasn't it?
Yes, this is the satellite sequence of the 4th and the 5th of February, so the storm that came along and did all the damage to the Dawlish railway line. The thing that was interesting about it and caused the most damage is the fact that it had been out over the Atlantic for a little while and it generated great big swells that were coming towards the UK, and those high swells, high seas, coincided with the high tides, and then as the low came in, because of the way the winds blow around the low pressure, you had a southeasterly wind blowing all of that sea and strong wave action onshore onto Dawlish, and that's why it caused the problem.
So it had been gathering force in the Atlantic, but what caused it to form in the first place?
Well, it was formed because of the contrast between the really, really cold air that we had over the States. They had record-breaking low temperatures and I think record-breaking snowfalls in places. And that cold air went a very, very long way south. So it was very close to the warm, tropical, moist air over the Caribbean. And it's that contrast between very cold air and warm air that generates our storms and our depressions that we get in this country. But it also generates a very strong jet stream that drove those storms towards us. We measured that there were about 12 intense storms that came through in that 3-month period.
This 3-mile stretch of soft sand at Perranporth is one of the most popular resorts on the region's north coast. And while the south coast bore the brunt of the winter storms, the north didn't get off lightly. As the sea surged in at Perranporth, it started to wash away that coveted sand. The sand that quite literally underpins this beachside business. The watering hole boasts of being the UK's only bar on the beach. Now, building directly onto sand might seem like an unwise choice, but it's stood firm for the past 33 years. That was until the February storms left it teetering on the edge. Bob Job runs the watering hole with his son Tom. They were in the middle of major renovations when the storm hit.
The first storm came, big tide, we're used to those, and it literally ripped probably 15 feet away from here, for the front 15 feet. That was a solid 15-foot drop. So you're talking thousands of tons of sand had moved.
Yeah.
And we thought, that's it, we've survived that one, no problems. And we had 2 or 3 days of it, it was pretty bad. And then 3.5 weeks later, it came again. Bigger winds, bigger storm. In all the years I've been here, I've never seen a sea like it. Even in my travels abroad, surfing around the world, this is 40, 50 foot plus stuff coming in on a beach in England. Totally unheard of, I'd have thought. and hopefully it'll be unheard of ever again.
The sand that was lost from the beach in February still hasn't returned. In the meantime, Bob's shoring up his cafe and even growing his business. I mean, you're not just staying put, you are expanding here, you're investing.
We're investing. We've got to move forward, as my son said. So that's what we're doing, yeah.
But if there are going to be more and more of these kind of extreme weather events, this isn't the place to be running a business.
It makes it harder, but someone's got to look after the place.
You're just completely committed to it?
Totally.
Over on the south side of Cornwall, work's underway which could offer coast addicts like Bob a clearer idea of what the future holds. This is Low Bar near Porthleven, and these are Plymouth University's storm chasers. Claire Early and Paul Russell are studying the impact of wild weather on our coastline to help planners work out what to do about it. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Paul.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Claire.
Hi.
Claire. So tell me what you're doing here.
Well, as you know, the southwest was hit by some of the biggest storm waves in living memory this winter. And what we're doing here is we're measuring those waves, but we're also measuring the impact on the coast. And we're doing that in three specific ways. We're measuring the beach erosion and accretion or build-up. We're measuring the erosion of the cliff face. And we're also measuring, excitingly, the mechanism by which the cliff erodes, which is we've got a seismometer in the cliff that measures the shaking of the cliff by the storm waves.
And Claire, what does this gadget do?
This is a laser scanner, and this maps the surface of the cliff, and we come back monthly and then we can compare the consecutive scans and see how the cliff has changed over time.
And what has happened in the last few months?
Typically we see about 2 to 3 centimetres of recession in a month, and then after the big storms that we've had, we saw 2 to 3 metres of erosion.
That's 100 times
Yes.
that amount.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
In fact, the cliffs here suffered the biggest battering of any in the southwest. So we're using a gadget of our own. An airborne camera to give us an idea of what hit them. Now, from their research, Paul and Claire have discovered that the waves that pummeled the shore here were an average of 8 metres high. Now, that might not sound very much, but imagine that you are at the top of one of those waves as it swells up to its full height, and you get a sense of how fearsome they were. We're talking waves as high as the roof of a 2-storey house, and they hit the Cornish coast here head on, over and over again. Claire filmed the onslaught.
It was pretty exciting, pretty terrifying as well. We captured the high tide and the biggest waves of that storm. At the same time as the seismometer being in the ground, capturing that movement as well.
The readings from the seismometer showed that the cliffs were swaying by 5 to 8 millimetres every time a wave hit. And it was that shaking that weakened them to breaking point. But were these extraordinary conditions a